everybody. This is Armida Martinez, and I will be your host today for this session. And for today's training topic, we're going to be talking about 6 impactful ways to decrease anxiety. And I know that this is something that we've all struggled with at some point in our life. Fear always has a way of creeping in and, stopping us on our track or having us overthink and having us shut down. And so I know, because I've struggled with it before, and I know that I'm not alone in this. I know that we all at some point are fearful of something, fearful of taking action, fearful of something that comes up in our life. And so I wanted to talk about this because this really can have an impact on how we handle ourselves in certain situations, and that affects the outcomes that we have in our lives. So it's okay to have fear, but we need to learn to and how to respond to fear in a more positive way that's not limiting us and stopping us from doing the things that we want to do in life. So before I go into the training, I just wanted to give you guys a quick background of who I am and what I do. I always like doing this. For those of you that are showing up for the first time, you know why I'm here. So I am a self-love, relationship, life and mindset coach. And the reason I became a coach is because I had many struggles in my lives before. I've had points in my life where I felt stuck. I felt like I wasn't thriving. I knew that I was meant for more. I'm sure you have all felt this, right? Like you know that you're meant for more, but you don't know like what that more is or what it is that you're meant to do. And then you have this fear of even trying to dig deep and figure out what that is, right? And so for many years, I felt stuck. I felt unhappy. I was blaming everybody else for where I wasn't taking responsibility for my life. And quite honestly, I was giving my power away to everyone and everything in my environment, which then led me to not take action in my life and not to follow and do the things that I wanted to do and to live the life that I deserve to live, and that each and every one of us deserves to live. I mean, we all came here for a purpose, and it is our birthright to live the life that we want to live, right? But I think we experience things in our life from at an early age that causes us to experience some sort of trauma, that then at an early stage in our life, we give that experience a story, a meaning and a story. And then we grow up with that story subconsciously controlling our life when we don't even realize that. So that's my story. So I subconsciously, I thought I was in control. And then subconsciously, I kept sabotaging myself because of my beliefs, because not feeling that I was good enough. I think after coaching so many clients, what I've learned is that in life, we don't take action and we don't do those things that we want to do because we don't feel that we're good enough, right? And it usually stems from, perceiving something in the past that we felt like we were abandoned, we weren't good enough to be loved, or maybe somebody didn't love us the way we wanted them to love us. And then we grow up with this story that holds us back, and this belief that then interferes with how our life functions. And so with that being said, I went on a healing journey. I want to get into the training. Don't want to keep you guys here for hours about my story, because I can do that. I love talking. So I went on this beautiful healing journey. I'm seeing beautiful now, but while I was going through it, it was definitely challenging, not beautiful, but it was the most beautiful experience I've gone through, because I found myself, my authentic self. I found my voice. I found clarity, I found courage, I found power, right? And so once I went through this journey and I transformed my life, it became a mission for me to be like, okay, how can I help others do this? Like, I really need to have an impact and help others, because this place is magical, this place is beautiful, and we're all worthy and deserving of being in this beautiful, thriving place. We came here to thrive. We came here for expansion. We came here for connection, and we're all meant to have that. And there's nothing that any of us needs to do to earn that. That's our birthright. And that's something that took me a while to realize and to learn. So this is why I'm here. And this is why I became a coach. I have a passion and a mission to help people move beyond fear-based living and into love and compassion, which is key to connecting to your authentic self, to your true self, and to your voice. Because at the core, we're beings of love, right? This is the reason we crave love so much, because we come from love. And this is the reason when we start to, strive away from that, it feels miserable and it feels heavy because it's not who we are at our most natural state. Anyway, so this is why I'm here, and it's an honor for me to be here. It's an honor for me to be training you guys and being just of service, because I really am, it's a passion for me, because I was in so much pain and I've overcome that. And if I did it, you guys can do it too. And so I just want to make sure that you know that you know the power that you have and how powerful you really are. And we're led to believe that we're not powerful, but we're truly powerful, and we really truly have the power to change our lives. But it begins by changing ourselves and changing our perspective. So with that being said, enough about me. I want to move into the training. So our training for today is 6 ways to decrease anxiety. Anxiety can stop us from living our best life, from doing the things that we want to do, right? Because anxiety, when fear creeps up, sometimes it makes us freeze. We either fight, we flight, we can either fight or fight it or freeze, or we can just completely shut down. And if we're doing this in our life, it's going to stop us from living our best life, right? And this is something that I have struggled with myself. So hopefully the 6 tips will help you process that, right? Because fear is meant to be, I believe fear comes up as a safety mechanism when we're going to do something that's unknown, something that's going to challenge us. Fear is going to creep up because it's something we've never done before. It's something that's it's going to feel like, okay, this is unsafe. We've never done this before. So it's going to have that, it's going to creep up and try to keep you stuck. So our job is to learn how to handle and process the fear so that we are able to take action despite the fear, because the fear is always going to be there, but it's about being in control and learning to shut down that voice that's telling you that you're not good enough to do what it is that you want to do. So before I move on, I always like to define everything so that we're all clear on what we're talking about. So I wanted to just read to you guys what the definition of anxiety is. So anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with an uncertain outcome. Intense, excessive, and persistent worry and fear about everyday situations, or fast heart, and usually you get like fast heart rate, you start to breathe very shallow, and you may have some sweating, you may feel very tired, you may feel like a knot in your stomach. There's so many different physical symptoms that can come up when you are feeling anxious and when you're feeling fear. Usually when you're feeling this because you start to feel heavy and you'll start to feel tense. And that's a sign that you're shutting down, right? You're shutting down and you're going into fear, fight or flight mode, right? So that's the definition of anxiety. So the number one way that I found to process anxiety, it's by being present, mindfulness, the present moment. Usually when we're stuck in fear and anxiety, we're overthinking a future event, something that has happened or something that we perceive, something that's about to happen, and we're perceiving the worst case outcome because we have a tendency to do that. I was one of those people, right? Like, why can't we just think that something good is about to happen? Why do we always have to go to the negative? But because we're brought up, because of our perceived trauma, we're brought up in this world, and not perceived because our trauma is real. It's something we felt. It's very, very real. I don't want to negate the trauma, because the trauma, it's not what gets us to where we are right now. It's the story that we tell ourselves because of the trauma. Because when we experience trauma, we make it about us, and we don't realize that we make it about us not being good enough and not being worthy enough of living the life that we want. And that's what holds us back, is the belief that we make up because of the trauma about ourselves, right?
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
So being present is one of the first things you can do to really, really stop anxiety on its track. If you're focused in the present moment, you're not overthinking, you're not thinking about the future. And that will automatically calm your nervous system down. One of the best things you can do is be mindful. I always say, be mindful of what you're doing. If you're eating, really take the time to savor your food. Usually we're like wolfing down our food, or we're reading a newspaper and we're like, focused on it. We're like checking our phones or doing so many different things all at once. And that just gets our mind to keep going around in circles and circles and circles, and we can't focus. So one of the best things you can just mindfulness, bring mindfulness to everything that you do. If you're washing the dishes, like really focus on how you're cleaning them. If you're eating, focus on the texture, focus on the taste, focus on how it feels. If you're working, focus on the project that you're working on. Really learn to start focusing on what you're doing so that you can start bringing everyday mindfulness to everything that you do, so that you can start being more present, because being present is going to help you not be overthinking about the future. So another quick thing you can do, and I've said this before, is just, mindful breathing. Mindful breathing, just deep belly breaths will bring you into the present moment. So that is the number one tip, is to be present. Another quick way is to change. Number two is change your inner conversations. A lot of times when we are in fear and in nervous and anxious mode, we're again overthinking about the past, and we're telling ourselves a story that's not serving, either about ourselves or about another person or about a situation that's really affecting how we're reacting, right? Because we're thinking that the worst case outcome. And so when we do this, we start to create this whole world of fear and anxiety about a possible outcome, something that's not even meant to happen. And then we spend all this energy focused and worried about something that may never even happen. And so I have a few questions that I want you to ask yourself. Remember that awareness is everything, as you cannot change something that you're not aware of. So when you catch yourself having this inner conversations that are rising up for you, that are bringing fear and anxiety, I don't want you to judge yourself at this moment. I want you to stop. Just stop and just notice what you're thinking, and then choose differently. This is really going to help you start rewiring that pattern of overreacting and overthinking and automatically going into default mode of feeling anxious and thinking worst case scenario. So when this happens, I want you to say to yourself, great job for catching whatever situation it is that whatever thought or story you caught yourself thinking that was not serving towards you and that was bringing up fear, those feelings of anxiety. I want you to stop and just congratulate yourself. Don't judge yourself. This is really important. If you start judging yourself, you're going to stay stuck in that negative energy cycle, lower level energy, and that's not going to help you move beyond the anxiety. So stop, take a couple of deep breaths, and just say, wow, great job, Armida, you caught that. And in this moment, choose something different. Say, I choose to see myself, see the other person, or see the situation through the eyes of love, right? This is really, really important, because this is going to help you really tune into yourself and really connect to that deep, passionate, loving person, authentic person that is within you, so that you can move beyond the fear and the anxiety. So what I want you to do is, again, stop, take a couple of deep breaths, don't judge yourself, and then thank yourself and say, you know what? Thank you, Armida. I'm just saying my name. Don't say thank you, Armida. Say thank you in your name. Thank you, Armida, for realizing and noticing that you're choosing, you're telling yourself a story that's not serving to you. At this moment, I choose to see myself through the eyes of love. And just keep doing that. And you may have to do this initially a couple of times, maybe 10, 15, 20 times. But the more you do this, the more you start to pattern interrupt that anxious behavior. And the more you're going to start to rewire your brain to start reacting differently. But remember, the key here is not to judge yourself and to do it with love and compassion. This is really important. Another thing you can do is you can close your eyes and you can imagine yourself placing that negative thought in a bubble. This is another way you can do that. So you can close your eyes, imagine yourself, once you've caught yourself thinking that negative thought, you close your eyes, you see yourself putting that thought in the negative bubble, and then you see the bubble fly away from you. And as it flies away from you, you send it away with love. This is a good visual. For those of you who are very visual, this will help you disconnect from that negative thought so that you don't feel, because sometimes we think that because we're thinking something, it's real. But a thought is just, the stories we tell ourselves are not, especially when we're anxious, are not real at that moment. It's just something we're thinking about the future. So I want you to learn to start interrupting that pattern. So that's another way. When you catch yourself, you can do what I said before. You can pause, take a couple of deep breaths and acknowledge it, send it love and compassion. And then, or you can close your eyes, see yourself putting it in a bubble and seeing the bubble fly away from you. And as it does, you send it away with love and compassion. So that's all within the changing the conversations. I just wanted to give you different tips to try to process those emotions when they come up. Number 3 is breath work. Oh my goodness, breath work is everything. Breath work, it's something that I love to use whenever I'm feeling anxious. I normally, and I've said this on other trainings here, I state this on my website, I say it in every training that I do, because I think this is one of the most important ways you can do breath work. There's different ways you can do breath work, but for me, it just works like wherever attention goes, energy goes. So whenever I catch myself in my head, overthinking, overanalyzing, getting anxious, getting worried, I just put one hand over my heart, one over my belly, and just take a couple of deep breaths. When you do this, you are grounding yourself to this present moment and you're calming your nervous system. Another quick thing that I do is that I set a timer for 3 minutes. If I'm really getting in my head, I'll set a timer for 3 minutes and I'll do this. And then I'll breathe in for 3 and breathe out for 6, or breathe in for 4 and out for 8. You wanna, your out breath should be 3 seconds longer than your in breath. For some reason that helps you even calm your nervous system even more. So just like 3-6 breaths. So I just usually do this, set a timer for 3 minutes and just really focus on my breathing, like really focus on how my hand feels when my belly's going up and down with the breathing, and just really not thinking about anything else. And just doing this quick 3-minute exercise will gradually decrease your anxiety and bring you into the present moment. So that's way number 3. Way number 4 is exercise and movement. This is another one that I love. A good thing that I'd like to do is every morning, try to do, when you wake up in the morning, if you can do 5 or 10 minutes of physical activity, just maybe do some jumping jacks, some squats, some push-ups, something just to get your energy going right from the beginning. It will help you set up your day. Another tool that I use for pattern interrupts when I'm feeling anxious and I have my clients use is whenever you start to feel anxious, usually any energy that we're feeling is just stuck energy looking for an outlet and to be processed, right? And one of the first things we try to do is we want to resist it because we're afraid of it. We try to resist our own emotions and we try to push it under the rug, but what we resist persists. So exercise and movement is perfect for letting out that energy out of your body. So one of the things that I tell my clients and that I like to do is when I'm feeling anxious, if I can do this, put a song that I like, that I know makes me happy, and just dance around my house being silly. Like, hey, I'm jumping up and down, I'm dancing, I'm doing jumping jacks, but just really getting the body movement. And you don't have to do this for 3 hours. You just need to do this for a few minutes to interrupt that behavior. You just want to find any way to when you feel the trigger of the anxiety coming on and you start to feel that heavy feeling, to pattern interrupt it so that you can start rewiring that, the way you're responding to it. Because our job usually, we are reacting to the anxiety, and our job is to not react, is to respond. Because when we respond, we can do it from a place of wholeness and compassion and love and a more grounded place, and we can hold space for ourselves, which is what we need at that moment, to really hold space so that we can process these emotions. So movement and exercise, whenever you're starting to feel triggered, don't get in your head at that moment. Just do some jumping jacks, put some music, jump up and down, laughter. I've done this and I may have looked silly, but I don't care. Life is about having fun. I've just started laughing out of nowhere, and that's interrupted any kind of anxiety have been feeling. So laugh, jump, I don't know, scream if you need to, but just let it out, because that energy just wants to be processed. So that's the way number 4 that you can pattern interrupt any anxiety. The other one is way number 5 is to practice gratitude and finding the lesson and the blessing. Gratitude. I'm so big on gratitude. I always feel like when we're grateful for those things that we do have, and it can be the minor things, you know, you have a bed to sleep on, you have food to eat, you have, you know, even if it's just ramen noodles, but you have something to eat. It's just being grateful for the fact that we're alive. If there's nothing else, the fact that you're here and that you're alive and that you're taking your next breath, that's something to be grateful for. Because to me, that shows we have no control of when we're going to leave this world. So the fact that you're still here means there's a purpose and there's a reason why you're here, right? So that should bring some excitement into your life. Like, wow, I'm here. There's something keeping me alive here. Get curious about that and be grateful that you're here for that. And so I always say gratitude journaling is amazing, amazing. If you can spend 5 minutes a day, either morning or night, or whenever you start to feel like you're anxious, just sit down and start writing the things that you're grateful for. You're going to automatically interrupt that behavior, because you can't be both. You can't be anxious and you can't be grateful at the same time. It's either one or the other. So if you start feeling anxious and you start doing a gratitude list, great way to pattern interrupt that. I always say, if you can write 3 to 5 things, whatever you can find. What I found it helpful, and some of my clients have found helpful, is when you are feeling elevated and you take the time to write a gratitude list and then carry it with you. And when you start to feel anxious, you can pull it out. Maybe you can write it on your phone or write it on a piece of paper and just put it in your wallet or in your purse. And you pull it out. And when you start feeling anxious, you just start reading them. But when you read them, I don't want you to read them just to read them. You need to bring emotion to it. You need to really feel it. So while you're reading them, hand over your heart. If you're touching your heart, you're bringing awareness to your heart, and that's going to bring you to that loving, grounded space that whatever that gratitude list that you're reading, it's going to hit home and it's really going to have an impact, right? So that's another beautiful way of doing this. Another great thing is to find the lesson in the blessing, of whatever it is that's making you anxious, right? If it's something about the future, you know, really focusing on bring yourself to the present moment. But sometimes we get anxious because we've experienced something in the past, right? And now we think that that same situation is going to happen to us in the future. And so when we think about that moment in the past that's bringing us some anxiety because we think it might replay in the future, this is a good time for you to get curious and sit down and get clear yourself. Okay, what was the lesson that I learned from this that happened in the past? Yes, I know this was a tough experience, but what was the lesson? Or what was the blessing? Or is there one or both? Or because usually there's something. If you really get clear with yourself right now, think back on a situation in the past where you experienced something that may have brought you some pain, or where you thought it was going to be the end of the world. And then after you went through it, you realized that that was one of the best things that could have happened to you. Or you realized maybe it wasn't the best thing, but maybe you learned a lesson from it. Because sometimes we experience things because we need the contrast to know. Contrast lets us know what we don't want. So when we experience things that we don't want, it just gives us clarity to the things that we do want. So that's the beautiful thing, just finding the lesson. If you're anxious about something maybe replaying in your future, finding the lesson and the blessing, and journaling on that and getting really clear will help you overcome this or control it, have more control over it. And then way number 6 is meditation. And I know this is some people meditation, some people, I mean, you either love it or you don't. But I feel like meditation, the people who don't like meditation is because they think that they have to stop thinking, or they, you know, I've heard people say like, I don't like to meditate because I can't stop thinking. And I'm like, you're never going to stop thinking. Your heart is pumping, you're alive. Like, you're meant to be thinking, and we're going to have all these thoughts. And I think people think that because they're when they're meditating, they're having these thoughts, they're thinking they're doing it wrong. No, meditation is to bring awareness to those thoughts. It's not meant to stop you from thinking. It's just meant for you to have awareness of what you're thinking so that you can then let them pass. Your job in meditation is to once focus on your breathing. You can have a count. You can just focus on your breathing. When you catch yourself having a thought, once you catch yourself, you bring back yourself back to the breath. You don't get involved in whatever thought you were coming in. You let the thought pass by, and then you focus back on your breath. This is a good way for you to learn to disconnect from your thoughts and those stories that you're telling yourself. So meditation really helps you get good at life because it helps you become aware of those thoughts that are passing through your mind that are usually controlling your life because we're not aware of them. And by meditating, you're able to become aware, but most importantly, you're able to disconnect because you're able to see, like, just because I'm thinking this thought doesn't mean I have to get involved in that. I have to, allow the thought to control me. I can just let it pass me by and bring it back to the breath. So I know that, meditation is one of those topics that people either like it or they don't. I always recommend, especially for my clients, if you're not big on meditating, if you feel like your mind is all over the place, start with guided meditations. YouTube has tons of guided meditations. You can find them for all kinds of, for anxiety, for all kinds of topics, anxiety, self-confidence, success. There's so many different meditations that are free on YouTube that will really help you start that process of really connecting. When you meditate and when you take the time to be with yourself and be with your thoughts, that's when you're going to start bringing awareness to your life and to those thoughts that are keeping you playing small and with all these anxiety. And so I'm a big advocate of meditation. If you don't want to, if you feel like it's too much, guided meditation will give you something to work through so that you can start to focus. I started off myself with guided meditations. Now I don't need any guided. I just put on like 15 minutes every morning just to focus myself and focus on the things that I want to process throughout my day. But those are really pretty much the 6 tips that I use and that I give to my clients to help them overcome anxiety. I do have a bonus for you guys, and it is and I want to say this in the best possible way. I know a lot of us, whether you believe in God, or on a higher power, I know some of us believe in a higher power, some people don't, and that's okay. Everybody is entitled to believe whatever it is that feels right to them. But I'm just going to say this. There's something out here that's keeping us alive, right? We have no control of our breath. We don't know when it's our last day. We don't know when our last breath is going to be, right? So there's something out there that's keeping us alive. So when we can surrender to whatever power is out there, whether you call it God, the universe, source, whatever it is that you call it, that connection that we have to this energy that's around us is keeping us alive. When we can learn to surrender to that power, it gives us so much peace of mind because you don't feel alone. And we're not alone because there's something really out there that's keeping us alive. And that's one of the things I had to learn for so many years. I thought I was alone and I never, connected to anything. And when I went in my spiritual journey, I found that there's this energy that we all call it differently. And that's okay. At the end of the day, it's the same energy field that's connected to us. We're extensions of that energy, and it's trying to communicate with us, and it's trying to help us co-create our lives. But we're so caught up in this fear-based living and this chaos, and we can't hear it. And the way we connect to it is by connecting to ourselves first. And the way you do this is by releasing the fear, releasing the anxiety, by working on the steps that we talked about in the past so that you can get clarity with yourself and then with the environment around you. So that's it for my training today. Thank you guys for being here. Do you guys have any questions?
Hi, Armida. That was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.
Do you coach your clients to typically go through all 6 or focus on one more than the other in terms of which one seems to help them deal with anxiety more than the other?
So we talk about all of them, at different times. I don't like giving my clients too much all at once because then they get overwhelmed. So usually I'll pick one or two. And then as we go on through different sessions, I'll give them a little bit more. And then I have them pick whichever one feels works right for them, because they what works for you. I'm here to give you tools, but your job, and I empower my clients to follow what feels right for them, because we're all wired differently. And we're all sometimes when we do pattern interrupts, we might find that one works better with the other. So I always tell them, trust yourself, trust your intuition, and go with what follows. Let's try them all out, because you're not going to know what works for you unless you try them, right? So let's try them out. That's why I like to give them in increments of like one or two at a time as we're working through different issues. And then what we'll do is, once we've gone through them all, I'm like, okay, which ones did you like the most? Which ones did resonate with you? Which ones do you feel more called to do? And then follow that. Pick one or two that you feel feels right in alignment to you after you've tried them all, and then stick to those. And once you make that commitment, see, awareness is everything. Once you become aware of something and you start to bring awareness to something, to like, let's say to pattern interrupt any anxious behavior, you're automatically, it's like your body won't let you ignore it anymore. So it's a beautiful thing, because you'll know the minute you start to feel anxious again, because now you're aware of it, you'll start to feel heavy. And then you can pick, okay, I'm starting to feel like this. Okay, what do I want to do? Let's do breath work. Let's do some jumping jacks. Let's do whatever feels right to you. But yes, I give my clients the freedom to choose whichever one they want, but I do have them try it all, because you're not going to know what you like unless you try them.
And try them. So to that question then too, what I'll say techniques do you use with your clients to help a client become even aware of the fact that, I'll say, anxiety is creeping in or stress is creeping in? Because I find a lot of times people are stressed, are anxious, and they're not even aware of it. So how do you help them first become aware of it to do, as you say, the pattern interrupt?
Usually it's when we're in session and we start talking about stuff, it'll come up and I'll say, okay, whenever someone starts to feel anxious, usually there's a feeling, and we'll start talking about it. And every client's differently, but there's usually something that triggers us, right? And it's like, what is it that triggers you right before you start feeling anxious? And usually people can tell you, like, at least my clients and what I've been through, is that you start to feel it because you start to feel heavy. Maybe your shoulders start to tense up. Maybe, your stomach starts to feel wheezy. Maybe you start to feel tired. Maybe you start to feel, like nervous. You want to get up and walk around. Like, you'll eventually, and it may take you some time to catch it, but the more you start doing it, you're going to start catching it quicker and quicker and quicker. And then you're going to start to rewire that pattern of behavior. But it's going to, once you have the awareness, like, wow, I have this behavior. A lot of times they don't know it. But when I work with them and they're telling me what they're struggling with, I'm like, this is what's going on. They're like, oh, wow, I never realized that. So it's just becoming, once you have that awareness, when it comes up, you'll be able to notice it and then start to implementing the pattern interrupt. The goal is to get them to implement it. Right. So when you're usually they're implementing it when they're here. Right. And when I work with them, I'm like, it's going to be whenever you notice it, don't judge yourself. If you've been in it for 3 hours, just be like, wow, I finally, I noticed it. With love and compassion. Just step in and say, I just noticed it. I choose to do something differently, and use one of those methods that we talked about. But the more you do it, if you're normally catching it here, the more you do it, eventually you start catching it. So it's like a hill. The more you do it, you're going to start catching it earlier and earlier and earlier and earlier. And it'll get to a point, like I've dealt with anxiety, and I've let myself spiral for days and sometimes weeks, because I know we can be stuck in a rut for a while. But the more I kept pattern interrupting and bringing myself back to center and back to the present moment by doing all those pattern interrupts we talked about, it started to go from, maybe months to like weeks, and then from weeks to like days, from days to hours. And now, I still have, I'm a human, and I still have experiences where things trigger me, but I can easily now, I would say within longest minutes, get myself back to center. Doesn't take me long, but it takes that consistency of when you do catch yourself, not judging yourself. That's key, because if you judge yourself, you're going to stay stuck there. Not judging yourself and choosing differently. And then the more you do that, it's like, okay, now you're here, you're going to start going like this, and you're going to start catching it quicker. So instead of going like this, you start to go like this. Maybe you dip a little bit like, oop, I caught it. And then you go like this. And it's like a little hill. It's like a little roller coaster, but that's life. And we're all, things are going to be thrown at us at all times. So it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be a straight line. Our goal is to get to a point that when we start to dip, we can quickly catch it and come up. And that comes with practice and consistency.
Exactly. Almost, again, daily discipline.
Right.
You don't get fit by going to the gym once. You go 4 or 5 times a week to get fit. Do this on a daily basis.
Right.
You talked about the breath work, and just to help some of the listeners that way, some of the members that way too. What's actually happening? So when we get quote unquote triggered, when we get stressed, okay, our nervous system goes into a fight or flight mode. And what ends up happening is the nervous system literally says to shut all of the blood flow off to the organs and put it out to the extremities so we can fight or flight. And so our organs are getting robbed of, I'll say, that blood flow. By doing the breath work like you talked about in terms of, exhaling twice as much as inhaling, what's happening by you physically and consciously exhaling twice as much, you're sending another signal to the nervous system that everything's okay, that the fight or flight is gone. And now the nervous system can go back to, I'll say, its normal state and start to send the blood flow back to the organs, of which just causes us all to calm down. There is a methodology out there if you want to Google it for your own clients, but also for anybody listening. It's called 4-7-8 breathing. And literally you inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8, and then not breathe for another 4. And to do that for like 3 or 4 minutes. And again,
beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, deregulates, brings people down.
Nice. I never knew that. Thank you for that. I am going to Google it, and I am going to try it. I love learning new tools and tips that I can use myself and that I can share with my clients. So thank you.
There's another one that's a little easier. And again, it doesn't bring you down as much as it just stops what's going on. And that's called box breathing. And it's, again, inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, don't breathe for 4.
Oh, so 4.
Creating a box.
Right.
That's what it's called, box breathing.
I never tried that one either. I'm going to have to try that one too. That's
perfect.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you as always. Wonderful to listen to you. Wonderful to take part in the sessions. You have yourself a wonderful weekend with your family. And we'll be back in front of the members next week.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bruce. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.